Hello, trading has closed on the 3rd of October 2024. We'll do our disclaimer first, as we always do. We'll go over our calls, make our predictions. It's my trading plan for tomorrow, which is the 4th of October 2024. Please remember my calls can be completely wrong. Any trade you make should be made at your own risk. I need to remind people the MEJT system gives targets, doesn't give entries per se, although the targets are support resistance levels. Okay, we look for the pattern today with the early high, which is this. Tomorrow should also have the early high. We had a target 57.0250. That printed immediately. We closed right at it, so we closed at resistance. Resistance doesn't have to hold. We also said I couldn't rule out gapping up smartly. Well, I couldn't rule it out, but that didn't happen. It was obvious before the open that wasn't going to happen. But I still can't rule out a recovery here after this drop. Still want to see this overcome at some point because of the wall with gap pattern. This is just a reminder of what we said. Called for that to print. Tomorrow has the early high. We have some targets for tomorrow. Let's just go over them. We have an optional target 56.16.63. Optional target 56.80.56. These things don't have to print, but they will print 95% of the time the next day, and if they don't, we'll forget them. I don't think both of these are going to print. I think you're too far away, but I think one or the other of them will. Either one would be a significant move from where we closed. We're also on the MEJT buy signal, but the final target hasn't been defined yet. It's going to be higher than where we closed, but I can't give you a price right now. MEJT, after this big drop, so that it wouldn't stick, it didn't. Prices retraced. We have the buy signal. There's an optional lower target. We've gone up since the buy signal, but not enough. The optional lower targets undercut this line. Optional higher targets to overcome this one. Let's take a look at the daily chart. Now, when we broke this, we had a target. If this is a cup with upsloping handle, the target's to retrace to here, but it doesn't mean you have to go there in a straight line. It doesn't break any rule if you rally up to this line, which is quite a bit higher. It's about 1% higher. And doesn't mean you will do it, it just doesn't break any rules if you rally up to it. And if we do it, that's an if. If you rally up to this line in 2 days, it would complete bar 13 on the DeMark sequential cell and bar 13 for real, not finishing early on the combo cell. So if we had a rally here up to this line, it wouldn't change the requirement. We drop down to here, and it would actually give a new sell signal, and you'd anticipate this line and this Bollinger Band here holding. So it doesn't change anything if we have a big rally first, and if we're going to have a big rally first, which I don't know, I don't want to sit through it. The non-farm payroll report comes out tomorrow. I'm always flat going into these things. I know some people can make big money when these economic reports come out, but I'm not one of those people. I don't have a good system for predicting what happens. I'm going to try to give my reasoning for tomorrow's call, but let's remember, when that report comes out, I'm going to be flat, and if I do take a trade, it's going to be after the report. We'll use the mixed signals rules again. Let's go over why. Tomorrow's pattern has a really high, which doesn't tell us where we open. The non-farm payroll report comes out before they open. It's usually a market mover. I can't predict the response to major economic reports with a sufficient degree of accuracy. Now it is bullish. Today's normally bearish pattern wasn't. There's some MEJT buy signal. Hasn't hit its target and it hasn't been permanently defined yet. We also gapped down, hit a lower low, and closed over all those lows. So all that's positive stuff. Now it is bearish. There's a wall into the close, and we closed at resistance. So if we do gap down, undercutting this low and preferably this one, and preferably this one, I mean, we're still in bear mode. But that hasn't happened yet. You could explain it, but that's not the same as saying it'll happen. Bears need to gap down smartly, preferably under the last relative low, and ideally under the low of day to continue the decline unabated. Failing that, I think we'll see higher prices even if we don't close higher. Now, the failure of the market to follow through after valid sell signals were given should be of concern to bears. Time isn't up yet, but if we rally tomorrow, we could start a substantial leg higher up to that line that we showed. Let's not forget we're in a big bull market, and trying to call tops is a dangerous thing. One of the rules I have when you try to call a top, if it doesn't move hard and fast, emphasis on fast, I lose my enthusiasm for calling a top. Now it could still work. If we open down here tomorrow, we could drop all the way to here. But if we don't, I mean, we could rally it back up here, which doesn't look too great on this chart, but it's about 1%. I don't sit through 1% moves if I can help it. So we have the pattern with the early high. All bears need to do is to gap down smartly, and we have a wall into the close, so right at resistance. If we do gap down smartly, it doesn't break any rules, and you can explain everything. And we would also say we can often leave a higher unsatisfied MEJT target near a top. So if we gap down here in negative response to non-farm payrolls, I mean, you can explain it. But if we don't, this is failure to hold on to lows over several days. It's not what you want to see if the market's about to collapse. We drop and drop and drop, and we just can't hold on to it. Here's this big drop, followed by no follow-through over 2 days. I mean, we have a higher target. It would make perfect sense for us to rally smartly tomorrow and preferably overcome this high where there's resistance. So that's just too iffy for me right now. Either we gap down smartly or we're going to trade higher. It's the pattern with the early high, and that's today's call.